The year was 1939, the month January. We're still some months away from the Second World War, but tensions are on the rise. Hitler and Nazi Germany were looking to expand. They set their eyes on Poland. Amid all this, Hitler decided to address his parliament, the Reichstag. His propaganda minister helped write his speech, the notorious Joseph Goebbels. And this is what he said.
Wenn es dem internationalen Finanzjudentum in und außerhalb Europas gelingen sollte, die Völker noch einmal in einen Weltkrieg zu stürzen, dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisierung der Erde und damit der Sieg des Judentums sein, sondern die Vernichtung der jüdischen Rasse in Europa.
Hitler warned of annihilating European Jews, and he very nearly did that. The Nazis killed 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. Yet, Hitler did not start this hatred. Hatred for Jews is often called the most ancient hatred, the oldest form of discrimination. Today we call it Anti-Semitism. In each period of history, it took different forms, Hitler being the most hateful one. He converted anti-Semitism into genocide, which makes you wonder, how did it all begin? Why have Jews been historically targeted? And why does it prevail today? Time for a flashback. Let's start with the early Roman Empire. And this was before Christianity. So the Roman subjects were pagans. They believed in a number of gods and forces. But Jews did not. Like today, they were monotheistic. They believed in just one God. So the Romans were suspicious. Everything about the Jews seemed like a red flag to them. They wouldn't intermarry, they observed Sabbath, and they circumcised their young. Today, if you don't understand something, you learn about it. But this was the 1st century BC. If you did not understand something, you villainized it. And that's what happened to the Jews. You can find examples in many Roman writings. The poet Juvenal said Jews are drunken and rowdy. The lawyer Cicero talked about how Jews always stick together, how they had power in assemblies, all classic anti-Semitic tropes. Things became worse after the death of Jesus Christ. Now we know who crucified Jesus. It was the Romans. But Christian propaganda hid that for a long, long time. Now I'm throwing some dates at you, so listen closely. Jesus was crucified in the year 33 AD. Like I said, the Romans did it. Years later, in 70 AD, the Romans destroyed the Temple of Jerusalem. It was like a watershed moment. Christians and Jews saw it as divine punishment. The New Testament reflected that. Instead of the Romans, it now blamed the Jews. Jews were depicted as killers of Jesus. It's a myth, an absolute falsehood. But back then, people believed it. In fact, why back then? Even today, many people believe it. Such sentiments led to a religious rivalry, Christians versus Jews. And the church played a key role in this. They taught all kinds of anti-Semitic things, like Jews had no reason to exist anymore. Their whole job was to prepare for Jesus Christ's arrival. And since that was done, Jews had nothing more to do. Their existence was seen as an anomaly. Many of them were forced to flee. We covered the Jewish dispersion in our last episode. You can watch it here. But fleeing did not mean a life of freedom. Anti-Semitism followed them. In 312 AD, Rome moved closer to Christianity. Their emperor, Constantine, converted. And pretty soon the Roman Empire became Christian. So the church now had more powers. It could influence the emperor. As a result, new laws were created. Jews were shunned to the margins of society. They were also denied basic rights and freedoms. In some places, Jews had to wear markers, like a yellow badge or a hat called Hudenhut. The idea was to identify and stay away from them. Remember, all this was over religion because the Jews refused to accept Christianity. And propaganda played an important role in this hatred. I'll give you some examples. In 1144, a 12-year-old boy was found murdered in Norwich. His name was William. There was no evidence of who killed him, no leads, so the case was a dead end. But 4 years later, a monk turned up in Norwich and he said the Jews had killed William. And that allegation was like a spark. Pretty soon, everyone pointed fingers at Jews. They were accused of blood libel, of killing Christian boys and using their blood for rituals. Today we call all of this fake news. Another example is from the Black Death, the plague in the 14th century. Christians said it was the work of the devil. What's more, the devil had a partner. No prizes for guessing. The Jews. They were accused of poisoning the wells in Europe. And none of this is backed by proof. But enough people said it, so it became a fact, much like propaganda today. In most of these cases, there was a logical explanation. The whole thing about Jewish money lenders. They were shown as evil and cunning, as hoarding more and more wealth. Even writers of this time fell for this trope, like William Shakespeare. You may have heard of his play, The Merchant of Venice. It has a Jewish lender. His name is Shylock. Shylock lends money to the Christian protagonist. He gives it on one condition. If the money is not repaid